some people. Okay, well, I guess I better wait for that.
It started, Herb.
All right. My name's Herb Bowen. Sorry I got all you together, but I, had a lot of parents, and I'm hoping more join to talk about this issue. I've talked to a lot of you about it, getting details. I want to thank Michelle for the conversation we had, because it kind of made me understand what's going on with the crosswalks throughout the city. Captain Donahue, he's supporting us very well every time, and I really appreciate him. Captain Spears, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate your your involvement. Also, I wanted we talked at the mayor's event there about your changes you want to make, and I'd like to let these people know if you could talk about that for 5 or 10 minutes or whatever, what you're trying to do with crosswalks and safety for the city. So let's do some introductions. Go ahead, Captain Donahue, tell what you do in the world.
Hi, my name is Steve Donahue. I like long walks on the beach, and I'm just kidding. I'm the Southern Division captain, so I know I'm not in my uniform, and I'm really sorry, but I've been here since 4 a.m., so I had to get out of that and get a little comfortable. So I work with Los Paseos and all my neighborhood associations for all the different stuff you need in the Southern Division. So that's it. But pass it on to Captain Spears.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Spears. I am the Support Services Division Captain. I oversee the Crossing Guard program, School Liaison Unit, Field Training Program, and about 4 different other crime prevention, 4 different other projects or parts of the department. I apologize, I'm not in uniform. It's just been one of those, Captain Donahue and I have been, we've been running. I'll pass it to Naquai. I'm going to put you on hold, and I'm going to introduce Michelle Barté.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Barté. I'm the program manager for the Police Department's School Safety and Education Unit, and we're responsible for the Crossing Guard program as well as other pedestrian safety programs for the city of San Jose.
All right, let's go to Lieutenant, since he's sitting there, wherever he's sitting.
Yeah, good evening. It's Lieutenant Sherry. I oversee our traffic enforcement unit. Happy to be here.
Great, thank you. Let's go over to Stormy. She's with the Los Paseos School.
Yeah, I'm Stormy Sutton. I'm the assistant principal at Los Paseos. I apologize also that I am not in uniform, but I spent the entire day hiking with our 5th graders at science camp, which was incredible. So all your kids are doing great.
Thank you. Okay, who else? I got Michelle Dexter of the D10 office. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dexter, Chief of Staff for Councilmember Arjun Batra. He expects to be in this meeting, but we just jumped off another Zoom for his Talk with Batra community office hours meeting. So he's still trying to wrap that up with a few people that had questions. So he'll be here as soon as he can.
Oh, nice.
We're here to support the community.
Okay. And then I have Mary Patterson. Go ahead, Mary.
Thanks, Herb. Hi, everybody. Mary Patterson. I am a resident of the Los Paseos neighborhood and 7-year school board member, Morgan Hill Unified.
Okay. Anybody else? I know anybody else that needs introductions, this might be talking, or the rest of you guys are going to be asking questions. Okay. So let's start, Michelle. We talked a little bit. Maybe you can give us a 5 to 10 minute, explanation of what's going on, which crosswalks are affected, and what you do and how you do it for the city.
Definitely. And I have just a quick slideshow. So I don't know, since I'm not an admin, if you could share access to.
I'll make you a co-host right now, Michelle.
Okay, thank you. I figured it'd be easier and prettier with the slideshow. So
Fine.
do I need to do something on my end, or is someone else
Michelle, I've made you co-host. You should be able to share your screen.
Is that working?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Let me remove this. Okay, so again, I'm representing our school safety and education unit. And the largest program that we're responsible for, and the one that has most of the attention, is the Crossing Guard program. So within our unit, we have, if all of our intersections are completely staffed, there are 121 intersections that would be operational. Right now, we do have a large deficit with vacancies, though. However, for every intersection that is requested to be staffed, as well as all those that are operational, are assigned to safety index numbers. So you'll see that reference with the SI and then the hashtag number sign. So what this does is make sure that there are different parties, different units, as well as different departments that have their input and hands on, so that it can't be biased one way or the other from any given unit. With that, we ask that we work with the school directly that is requesting the intersection. So for the 3 intersections that we're discussing for the purposes of tonight, they overlap between 2 schools, Los Paseos and Martin Murphy. These 3 intersections already have been assigned safety index numbers, but they are a little bit older. If anything, the numbers would have likely decreased over time. For this study, though, council has given directions that any location needs to score a number of 120 or greater to qualify for staffing. Anything below 120 does not qualify. And let's see, in addition to qualifying for the 120 number or greater than, it also needs council approval for funding. So once all those things are in place, then we're given the green light to go ahead and start recruitment to hire additional guards to open new locations. So with that, as we have our operational intersections, every October, our crossing guards conduct a pedestrian head count. This takes place for a span of 1 week during the month of October. And this is just to ensure that the number of children that are crossing meet a minimum threshold. Because over time, neighborhoods change, demographics change. So we want to make sure that that number is still consistent so that our guards are being used and deployed at the right locations where the greatest impact is taking place. So on this sheet, it just shows what the criteria is that goes into different counts. We are only counting children or students that are within the span of 1st through 8th grade. We do not count parents. We do not count siblings that are toddlers or in preschool, kindergarten, for example. However, this number is consistent throughout all of our studies. So on the right of the screen, it does show just a snapshot of what one of the counts is, an example of the tallies that they're taking too. If any of the locations have a low pedestrian count, we'll go ahead and send a supervisor out specifically to that location and monitor over a period of time as well, just to confirm. We're always slower to close locations than to just to err on the side of caution as well. So if that takes place, we'll notify the given stakeholders, and that does include any school or multiple schools if need be, any pedestrians, including handing out flyers, and that's a span of 1 to 2 weeks, as well as the crossing guards. This doesn't mean that if a location is closed, it's permanent. If things change in the future, then we could definitely reassess and have it restudied again in the future. This brings us to the locations that impact the 2 schools. So there are 3 intersections, and those are the first 3 bullet points. So what had happened is this year, one of the 2 schools changed their bell schedule. In doing that, it changed the demographics of the number of kids that were crossing. Before, we used to have both elementary and middle school students crossing at the same time. With a different bell schedule, they're now separated out, which then decreased the number of pedestrians. Each intersection is staffed for 2 hours per guard, and that gives them 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the afternoon. Martin Murphy qualified for all 3 locations with their middle school students alone. However, for Los Paseos, it was not used as much. However, of the 3 locations, Villa Vista and Avenida España, did qualify for Los Paseos students on their own. Because we have such a disparity of the number of vacancies that we have right now, I am using some of the department's funding to open a so-called new location. So even though it's the same intersection, in our books, we now have 4 operating intersections because we're deploying staffing at 2 different shifts at this one location. However, for the other 2 locations, for Avenida España and Santa Teresa, as well as Chantilly and Santa Teresa, the pedestrian count dropped drastically. We did several counts for this one, and on average, there were only about 2 to 4 school-age students that were crossing given or during a given shift. With that, it would not qualify, and if restudied, the safety index number would likely drop to a 0. So that's why we had to shut down locations for that. They are still operational, however, though, for Martin Murphy. And with that, that's a general overview, but with that, that's the data that I wanted to provide everybody.
Okay, thank you. That gives us an idea, and I'm sure there's some questions about this. So if you have a question, let's ask Michelle now, because we're going to jump into another thing. So does anybody have a question about what she presented, especially on the number of, go ahead.
I have my hand raised, Herb. On your last slide, Michelle, I don't quite see the 7:15 to 8 o'clock Los Paseos Elementary School there at Avenida España and Santa Teresa. If you could put that slide up again, your last slide. I don't see that there.
Sorry, I just closed down just one moment.
Maybe you could look at it and explain it to me.
Okay, hopefully that's sharing. Okay, so on this one?
That one there, yeah.
Okay, and I'm sorry, your question again?
For Los Paseos Elementary School, where is that in your intersections here? That they cross from 7:15 to 8 o'clock in the morning at Avenida España and Santa Teresa, and I don't see it there.
Okay, it's right here at the bottom, highlighted in green.
That's a new location you're adding?
No, so it is a little confusing. So there are 3 separate intersections. However, the way that the city allocates, I guess, staffing is based on guards working for 1-hour shifts in the morning and then a 1-hour shift in the afternoon. So each one of these intersections was allocated for guards to work 2 hours a day. Because the bell schedule changed, we now have a total of 4 hours a day because the times that the children are crossing are completely different right now. Looked at it to see if we could overlap times, but they're not close at all. Extending times or anything, it would not work in that sense. So in that perspective, Villa Vista and Avenida España would have guards working there a total of 4 hours a day. So one set of guards serving the middle school, another set of guards serving the elementary.
So we have a question in the chat about the number of kids was 4 that you had on your tally?
Approximately.
Okay. And was that done in 2 different, I guess, survey wise? So what was that done? 2-3 days?
So the crossing guard survey was done in October, and that was a span of 1 month, or I'm sorry, a span of 1 week. So 5 separate school days. And I had a total of 3 other supervisors spot check and go out on random days just to confirm just recently. And another supervisor go out during his normal rounds as well, and just to spot check. So it's consistently been about that number at the 2 locations.
Okay. I think where the confusion, I mean, we sat Greg and I went last Monday, and Frederick was there, and he had a bunch of numbers, which were a little bit more, I think. Greg, I don't know if that's true or not, but so, I'm kind of okay. These numbers, people are concerned, but it's low. And I mean, if it's under 12, why do we have crossing guards there? For my thing, the parents need to step up and, help us with this issue at the, and that's why I want to go with Captain Spears and, with his initiative that he's put out, things that we can do as a community and working with the Vision Zero Task Force. So, okay. Any other questions for Michelle?
So am I correct? These intersections will be staffed, but they'll be staffed for the middle school start time and not the elementary school start time.
Correct, with the exception of Via Vista and Avenida España. That one will serve both schools.
Okay, so what time will the crossing guards be there based on the middle school bell schedule?
Let's see, for which intersection?
Well, for the Avenida España Santa Teresa and the Chantilly Santa Teresa.
Okay, so for the Santa Teresa and Chantilly, the guards in the mornings work approximately from 8:30 to 9:15. Let's see, the Santa Teresa and Avenida España is, let's see, the same time. I'm sorry, for all three intersections, it's the same time in the morning.
Okay, I had Ben. Go ahead, Ben. What's your question? Then I'll go to the.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry if I'm being a little slow here to understand, but I have two kids who cross every day, or virtually every day, Avenida España and Santa Teresa, and I know, I mean, I can see there are, let's say, 10 more kids at least. I mean, I don't understand where the numbers 2 and 4 come from, 2 to 4 come from.
Again, I do close things much slower than our guidelines. And the reason is I want to be absolutely positive that the count is low. And I'm a parent myself with 2 children that go to schools in San Jose, 2 different schools. I understand, and not to discount that one child is not enough, or 10 or 20 or 50. It's just, we need to do our due diligence and make sure that our resources are being maximized.
I don't disagree with any of this. This perfectly reasonable. I'm wondering why the count is so slow, since I see many with my own eyes.
It depends on the criteria, and let me go back to the slide also. How we're counting children. Again, we're only counting school-age children. So those are between grades 1 through 8. So if we have, for example, mom that takes a 3rd grader as well as, say, a preschooler, even though those are 3 people that are crossing the street, for the purpose of this pedestrian count, would only count as 1. However, we do that consistently at every location. So it's not just at this location they would not count. It's just to give us a baseline, since our unit is there to provide crossing for elementary and middle school students.
And what again was the window for counting in the morning for Los Paseos?
For all locations, we typically start 1 hour before the bell schedule up to the morning bell. For the afternoon, it's the release bell 1 hour thereafter. Typically, and I'm sure you're more than well aware that 1 hour is more than enough time, and that there isn't pedestrians that are coming that early to school, or if those that are straggling on campus tend to not cross or go different directions as well. So the time frame is much slower or smaller. However, the time that we're out there at least observing is up to 1 hour.
Michelle,
what is that time?
This is Greg. Michelle, I know for a fact, because I saw it a couple of times, there is more than 2 to 4 people that cross Santa Teresa and Avenida España every day.
We were out there. I had 2 separate supervisors this morning.
I was in there from 7:15 to 8 o'clock, and I saw it, and I saw the counts for that street. It's not 2 to 4.
Okay.
And I saw you that day. Like, there's absolutely more than 2 to 4. This is insane. I can tell you the names of 9 kids who cross every day. So I don't know where the 2 to 4 came from, but it's not accurate. I'm not saying that we shouldn't close it. I do agree there's not a lot of kids, but when you're giving us data and the data is not accurate, it's really hard as a parent to be like, yes, I agree with this decision. Give us accurate data that's truthful, please.
Okay. And I'm not going to refute any counts. We, again, did multiple shift work out there above and beyond the regular counts. Again, even if you had, say, 30 kids out there, 40 kids out there, if a safety index study were redone, it would not qualify with the 120.
Michelle, does the city take into account the speed that people are traveling when they're going across these, like 45, 50, 60 miles an hour when they're coming from Morgan Hill?
If I could jump in for a second.
Yes.
You know, as far as the city with all the collisions and the things that we've seen responded to, absolutely, we're absolutely concerned. You wouldn't have half our command staff on a Zoom tonight trying to come up with a solution. I even have our traffic enforcement commander on this call just as well. And so we're not disputing that the speed a safety issue. It's a safety issue everywhere. And what Michelle is trying to just convey is that we don't have the bandwidth to staff every intersection, which is well deserved within a city of our size and at our magnitude of driving collisions. Absolutely. But we have to utilize this data. I sent personnel out there. I oversee Michelle. I said, hey, I would like someone else to go back out. Now, are we trying? These are all the things that we are trying, and we want to make sure that we're being transparent, and that's what we're here tonight. Naquai, could you provide a little information regarding collisions within the specific area discussed?
Yeah, so yes, I do agree. Santa Teresa is a problem, kind of like Monterey. Some of the main farewells, people tend to pick up a lot of speed. Our motor officers, again, staffing is an issue. We are stretched pretty thin as most of the units in the department, but we do spend an awful lot of time in that particular area. Some by request and some because our officers, if they're down in the Southern Division, they'll work that area a lot. So that area between on Santa Teresa, between Cotto and Bernal, they tend to work that area quite often. And as the Donahue sees the daily activity reports, I'm sure he can attest to the citations that are issued almost on a daily basis out there. In looking at our history in the accidents in that particular area at that particular intersection within the last 12 months, we only have one on record, and it was a minor injury collision that occurred back in March of this year. So collision data is very, very, very low for that particular area. Now, I'm not discounting the fact that there is a speeding problem down Santa Teresa, but that's just what we have on record right now.
Okay, so I have 2 hands up. Pixel 7, go ahead.
No.
Okay, Hung, go ahead, Hung.
So are we talking about from a data perspective? So are you saying that right now there's not enough students, elementary school age students that's crossing Avenida España, because that's kind of Avenida España and Santa Teresa, that's where we take our kids. So going back to the data, I mean, if we can prove to you guys that we have at least 12 families that actually utilize this crosswalk every day, is that something that you guys can change it and say, hey, you know what, we should have cross guards at Avenida España and Santa Teresa, because that's actually the main artery for people to get into school?
Yes, and definitely, if there are more pedestrians, school-age pedestrians that use the crosswalks, yes, and that's why we went out there. However, like you mentioned, if it's 12 families, not even students, but 12 families, that still would not come in comparison to the other locations that we need to staff at. There are unfortunately locations that have, say, 100, 200, 300 students that do go by. And when it comes to a matter of where we're going to use the city's resources, I need to do my job and make sure that I'm doing my due diligence and using our resources wisely and trying to have the greatest impact as possible. And granted, for example, if the bell schedules revert back to what they are, they would qualify again, because they would have the middle school pedestrians count for them. And that would negate all these issues. There are different aspects. If it comes to just outreach and education, our team could go out there and speak with the kids. A lot of the initiatives are trying to teach the parents. Unfortunately, it's the parents are the bad drivers, the worst drivers. So we do have these talks that we could get onto the children's level and say, hey, when you're sitting in the back seat, how many trees do you pass? How many seconds could you count until you pass that next tree? And we'll time it. We'll go out there ourselves and say, between these trees on this street, you should be able to count to 3. If your mom is driving, you only counted to 1, let mom know, hey, slow down, something's not right. And you help, do your part. Just like our traffic enforcement team with the lieutenant here, they're out there helping us. We use speed radars. We do as many things as possible. If it's setting up a valet program, student safety patrol. However, on Santa Teresa, I would not recommend a student safety patrol, but if there are different locations, we're definitely there to brainstorm and help out wherever we can. But as far as crossing guards, it does go back to where the intersections qualify and how they par up with one another. And that's where we are with this one.
So
Okay.
I have a question. Sorry. Is it possible if it doesn't qualify for city funding for crossing guards, is it possible that the traffic unit can implement something during those morning hours, at least initially when they eliminate the program, to enforce the high speeds, to enforce the parents or drivers that don't know how to yield to people or don't understand the right of way at that intersection? Is there something the traffic unit can do initially to help be visible and enforce some of these concerns?
Go ahead, Lieutenant. Sorry. He's muted.
Sorry about that. All right. It's certainly something we can look at and maybe work. Unfortunately, we can't be out there every single day. The city's a large city, and all I have is 14 guys that are out there enforcing traffic on a daily basis. And on an annual basis, they issue out about 21,000 tickets. And although that sounds like a lot, the city's very, very large. And obviously there's traffic problems throughout the entire city. But I mean, we can certainly schedule it to where we're out there for a couple of days and to get people started and maybe put some enforcement and some awareness out there to get people to realize they need to slow down.
Okay, that's great. So Captain Spears, we talked at the mayor's event. You mentioned you had some initiatives you were working with the Vision Zero Task Force with. And I don't know if everybody's familiar with the Vision Task Force. They go out and they're supposed to, they put banners up, these wonderful bags they give out. So I'm kind of like, what's your relationship with them, and what's your initiative? If you can give us some insight, please.
So I don't have a relationship per se. Lieutenant Sherry is actually on the Vision Zero Task Force. But what a proposal that I'm working on with the city of San Jose, it's a draft, and I have it right next to me. And it's basically, the background is creating a pilot program that allows high school seniors to obtain school credit for being school safety crossing guards. And it could be a great way to instill responsibility and teach value and life skills. And I outline it. It's called Safe Seniors. And it's to teach high school seniors responsibility, communication, and important life skills while ensuring the safety of younger students and community members during their commute to and from school. Obviously, I want to emphasize the training, the responsibility, accountability, but more importantly, mentoring and leadership. As we know, our generation, and bless my educators on here, we all know the way that our today's youth communicate is like this. And so I'm looking for innovative ways to actually circumvent, one, to deal with our deficit of the lack of crossing guards that we have, but two, there is a method to my madness, and that's this. I call it planting a mind virus. We all can agree when we were 16, 17, and 18, and as we, obtained our driver's licenses, we didn't listen to our parents. It took a speeding ticket or unfortunately a car accident. So when I talk about Vision Zero, what I'm hoping to achieve is if I can find a high school that's willing to participate, and maybe even add a college stipend where there's funds for them as, for a senior, what I believe it'll happen is it resonates, right? They plant that mind virus where we start being able to have dialogue on speeding and running around and being distracted. Prior to having this particular position, I had the Western Division. And within the Western Division, I had not one but two children killed during my watch as the commander of Western due to, inattention. And I'm open for ideas, suggestions. I've presented this. This is still in the works. It's a draft doc, and I'm hoping to provide an update remotely soon. But for the folks that are educators out here and you have some connections to a high school, please get a hold of me. I'll make sure that I drop my email chat in the my email address in the chat. But that's something that we're working on. And just go ahead, Councilmember.
Brian, this is Councilmember Arjun Batra. I think this is a very good way of thinking of teaching the young people the responsibility and all the other things you mentioned. I would be willing to, with our captain or you, whoever has got the requirements of how to make this thing work, I'll be happy to go to the high schools in District 10, the Pioneer High School, Leland High School, Santa Teresa High School, to work with them, a collaboration on this thing. And I recently visited Santa Teresa High School for other reason, and I found that the principal were very, very willing to get involved with the community type of things. And if you have already given thoughts to it, how to make it practical, I'm more than happy to be working with you as a partner to go to the high schools and get some kind of a pilot project going. Okay, so Captain, I see my Southern District Captain, Steve Donahue, is there. So let's three get together with right amount of information so that we can answer the questions which principal will have. And let's go and meet with all these three high schools, and I'll be happy to get a pilot project started on it.
That's great. I appreciate that. Mary, are you taking notes on this? Some of the things I think you might want to do is move school schedules. So that might be something we do. And I'd like to take this down to the middle schools, because I could put safety guards at the middle schools too, Captain Spears. I did it in 6th grade when I was, here in Oakland. So, I mean.
And we do have a program. I'm sorry, Stormy, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we already have a strong mentorship program with the middle school. They come over to our school every day, and they're working on safety initiatives with our kinder, 1st and 3rd grade as well. Council member, I appreciate your willingness to go to the high schools. I was going to volunteer because I feel like this is something that could very easily happen. So I appreciate you stepping up to take on that role. It's super important, and I think our seniors can benefit from this as well as our community. So I just appreciate both of you for that. Thank you so much. But I think our middle school students, they're already helping
around the schools. Safety around the school is a community priority. It's my priority, it's city's priority. So all of us together can, whatever little we can contribute towards that one is a big help. And I'm willing to do my part in it, being a partner in that.
Okay, Julie, go ahead. Julie had her hand up.
Yeah, hi there. I wonder what it was when we had our schedule last year. Our start time was aligned with Martin Murphy. How many kids were crossing when we were all together?
I don't have that information on hand, but I can pull that later.
I know that the school that we are at Los Paseos, there's multiple families that do not like the time change. And I know this is a different topic, but I mean, and I don't know, I still don't know why the time has changed for our school, but if it was changed back, then I don't know if that would just solve the problem altogether, but maybe it creates a whole new one.
No, if the time reverted back to what it used to be, it would not be an issue. It would be one set time, and the guards would be out there for both
we
schools.
have families that have children that go to Martin Murphy, and some of them have to go to work, so they have to drop their kid off, and there's an hour that's sitting there for these kids that I don't know what they're getting into during that time period. So it creates issues along multiple lines.
And I don't want to speak for the school, and I don't know what factors go in. However, oftentimes when we're out there, even at locations that we don't have crossing guards at, we do work with all the different schools, and they ask for our input. And one of the main complaints is the number of vehicles with a backup. And it's a small time frame, about 10 to 15 minutes maximum. But one way to avoid that and alleviate that congestion is to push back their bell schedule a little bit. If they stagger it by even 15 minutes, that would help the flow of traffic, and it would still be in a time frame where we could overlap and have guards there for the 1 hour
Yeah.
period.
It would be
However,
nice
if it's
'cause
pushed back an hour, it doesn't.
we're an hour
Okay,
and 15, so.
okay, I got to get to Captain Donahue. He had a long day today, both Spears and him. There's a cluster mess in the city, and so go ahead, Captain Donahue.
Thanks, Herb. I appreciate it. So I just want to jump in here. For those of you that joined after the introductions, my name's Steve Donahue. I'm the Southern Division Captain for everything that occurs in the south end of the city. And I wanted to touch on a few things that have been mentioned. I've been paying attention to what's coming up in the chat, and I've been kind of listening to a lot of what we're hearing here from parents and from administrators. A couple of things. Michelle, see, this is a new thing with Zoom. Have you noticed this? If you go like this, a little bubble pops up. Look at that. Watch, a little bubble will pop up and it gives me a thumbs up. Isn't that weird? I don't know why it does that. Michelle's hands are tied. Okay. I want everyone on this Zoom to hear this from me. She cannot make the decision to put a crossing guard there because it does not qualify for a data set number that was dictated by council, by city council years ago. And so she feeds the information, including speeds, turns, traffic, and the number of children into a formula, and that provides her the index. And if the number is not high enough, then we cannot put a guard there. And there's nothing we can do about desire or practicality or anything like that. It really boils down to a formula. And the city council enacted this really for a series of equity around the city to say, hey, we have very limited resources in crossing guards, and we need to figure out where we can put them based on the needs throughout the entire city. So when the bell schedule changed at the school, that changed the index number for the school for those two intersections, and she had to pull them. As much as we don't want to, right? We would love to have crossing guards at every intersection around every school, but we just don't have the staffing, the ability, and we have to abide by the numbers. I've seen a lot of chat mentions like there's no way that there are 2 kids. There's no way that there are 6 kids. I see a lot more kids coming and going. And I totally understand that. Unfortunately, on the days where our supervisors went out, where our crossing guards went out, when our other staff went out, all of those days, those kids were not there. That doesn't mean that they aren't there any other days and they don't normally cross there. Maybe there's kids sick, maybe family was on vacation, whatever it means. But when they did those counts, they were so low that even if all the numbers you said, the 12 kids, 25 kids were there, it still would not amount to the number that we need to have the 120 index. Okay. So I want to make sure everybody hears that as much as we would like to at the department, we cannot put the guards there. Now, there are other things we can do. And I like the idea that Michelle came up with coming out to the school, doing some public safety presentations, talking to the kids about safety crossing the street, things like that. We can have our motors unit. Nakwai is very nice to say that they will be down there to do traffic control. I'll tell you, if he wasn't here, I would probably say no, but he's a softie and I'm mean. And the reason being is that our motors unit is assigned to do high collision rate intersections. And so we only have 14 in the whole city of 1 million people, right? Of all these square miles I have to cover, 180 square miles, we only have 14. So when we have high collision rate intersections, that's where we put them. I pulled up the last stats for our motors unit, right? And something you don't know is that on November 1st, they were on Santa Teresa and Bailey writing tickets. And that day, the unit wrote 138 tickets and 5 warnings, right? So when you think about that number, that's a tremendous amount of work that they were doing. And they hit a bunch of intersections, Santa Teresa and Bailey, Winchester and Heading, intersections throughout the city. And all of them have had fatal collisions and severe injury collisions. But I want that to be known that that was very nice of Lieutenant Sherry to put that out there and be willing to do it. The last thing is there are other things that we can do as a community to promote the safety of these kids. And it's not just the police department's responsibility. One thing I was talking to Herb about earlier today is we've started this new thing called Coffee at the Crosswalk. And we posted on social media today. I did it over at Ledesma Elementary over in Basking Ridge, and we bring a couple of cops out there. The neighborhood association brings coffee and hot chocolate for the kids, and all the kids walk into school, get some hot chocolate. The cops and the parents get some coffee, and we hang out and help the kids cross the street. Everybody behaves. They see the cops are out there, and we change some kind of hearts and minds, right? I think this is a great school for that. So we actually scheduled it to come to your school, to Avenida España, and we will be out there on the 16th of November. So I will have some officers out there helping the kids cross the street and spending some time. Herb said he'd buy me coffee, which is really important to get me out there because I love coffee. So there's that. So I kind of want to stress the idea that this isn't just the police department's responsibility. Parents can do this too. Parents can help their kids cross the street. Parents can stick around for an hour in the morning and help us, because we have our hands tied and we cannot be out there. So there are other alternatives, and I wanted to stress that. So thank you for giving me a moment to do so.
So just right quickly, telling how many officers we have on beat on yellow and x-ray, so they know, we don't have a lot of beat officers out there.
Yeah.
And thank God for Sergeant Yates, because he's there all the time.
So on a busy day, so let's say we take just the district that you're in, which is yellow. That yellow district goes from the intersection of Santa Teresa and Blossom Hill over by Oak Ridge Mall, and it goes eastbound along Blossom Hill, and then it goes south all the way to Morgan Hill. Okay, so think about the size of that. From Blossom Hill, from the Oak Ridge Mall all the way to Morgan Hill, that entire district, I have anywhere on a good day 5 officers out there, usually 4 in that entire area. And we go to calls with 2 officers at a time because nobody goes alone. And that means we can really handle 2 calls for service at a time on any normal given day. So when the officers are willing to come out and spend some time with the school, that means something. Right? Thanks, Herb.
I appreciate that. It gives you an understanding of what resources we have. Lieutenant Sherry, so on the 16th, can I get 2 officers, motorcycle units out there, not on Mr. Donahue's jits?
Not on the 16th. 16th
Okay.
is about positive non-enforcement contacts. We want to have happy kids giving out stickers, high fives. We want them to be happy, and we don't want their parents getting a whole bunch of tickets the same day, Herb.
You have to understand, they see the motorcycle officers are not giving tickets out. Maybe 1 officer.
Yeah.
We'll get motors out there to write some tickets, but
no,
not
I don't
on
want
the
to write
same
tickets
day.
that day. The whole thing is about community. So I agree with that. And yeah.
Unfortunately, that week will not work. Our entire unit's up in San Francisco. We're providing assistance for the APEC conference up there that week.
Okay, that means they're all gone. No tickets.
That is correct.
Okay. All right, Mary Patterson, go ahead, because you got the Morgan Hill School District.
Thanks, Herb. I just want to say that the bell schedules, as you guys could imagine, and Mr. Donahue knows because his wife has to make master schedules for another middle school. Bell schedules are incredibly difficult and complex, and there are dozens and dozens of factors. So that includes how do children learn and the staff resources that are available, as well as what does the rest of the day look like, buses, lunches. We're a district of 8,000 kids, so 13 schools. So there's just a lot of things that fit into this huge, beautiful puzzle that end up with bell schedules and the schedules for the rest of the day and the rest of the week, both at Los Paseos, Martin Murphy, and our other 11 schools. So tons of factors. And I don't think that helping the city of San Jose manage its resources would be a major factor that we'd consider when we're thinking about bell schedules. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I think volunteerism is a fantastic idea. And I think we've got we have tremendous families, outstanding students and parents in the neighborhood that we know as a neighborhood association, and we certainly know as a homeschool club, and we certainly know as a school community. So thinking about extending a volunteer squad out into the streets, I think is really great. If the city could help with that, that would be awesome, like help with coordination. That's one of the things that gets a little bit tough, I'd say, in terms of you know, who's going to be what, where. Home and School Club might be able to help with that. Julie can tell us whether or not that's plausible, but that certainly happens. It happens right outside Los Paseos sometimes, not in one of these intersections you identified. Finally, I just add a question. Thanks, Steve. I think what Steve said about the factors that go into the 120, I was never clear. I think he said speed, number of turns, number of kids, and was there a fourth factor that goes into the calculation of the 120 safety index?
I'll chime in real quick on that one. So that is conducted by the Department of Transportation. And if you're considering all the hardscape, everything that encompasses, like you said, for the bell schedule, for example, how there's hundreds of factors that go in, it's the same thing. They're out there measuring the width of a street. They're counting how many lanes, they're counting the speed. Is it at an uncontrolled intersection? Controlled being a stop sign, a two-way stop, three-way, four-way, signal light. How many
all that
left turns,
data
right
comes
turns?
together in the index, Michelle?
It does, and that
Okay.
comprises a safety index number.
Got it.
And the goal, I wouldn't even set 120 as an ideal goal. There are other intersections citywide that are over 1,000 in their score, just to put into perspective. So even at that, council is very generous when it comes to funding because they do understand that student safety is a priority. And they typically fund anything, you know, if it's on a wait list, and that does qualify. However, if it ever came down to, for example, you could only staff, say we're given just endless amounts of money and staff as many as you want, but up to a certain threshold, our priority would go from the highest safety index number, which is considered the most dangerous and the greatest need, down to the lowest. So even if it hit that threshold of 120, not that it's not significant, it just there's a huge disparity right there. And just for example, Chantilly and Santa Teresa years ago, when a safety index study was conducted, was at a 103. So it did not even qualify at that time, taking in the demographics of both schools. So now it's even at a lower point. So we've definitely tried everything to try to get as many factors in that would bolster that number. And we couldn't.
Thank you, Michelle. That's super helpful.
Okay, so we got Jen. Jen, go ahead, and then Greg, and then we'll finalize this thing up. Go ahead, Jen.
Howdy, there we go. Hey guys, I live the 2nd Street in going north from Los Paseos Elementary School, and I try to avoid coming or going anytime during school hours when kids are crossing. But there's times where I just don't have a choice, right? I can tell you that the thing that has surprised me on more than one occasion is when I'm pulling out of my street to make a right in the right direction, going the direction of traffic, and I'm faced with an oncoming speeding car who is clearly not on the right side of the street. And it has shocked me more than once where I've had to slam on my brakes because somebody decided, and I'm pulling out slowly because I'm watching everything. They're getting fed up with the line, the backup of traffic, and so they just figure I'm just going to kind of pull over and go forward and pass up the line. I can understand some parents getting frustrated and that sort of thing, but for it to happen on several occasions is shocking to me that kind of thing would happen. And the only thing I can think of, because I don't know these parents, God forbid, I thank God I don't know these parents. But if, I know there's not a lot of control, but if back to school nights and a notice home of some sort, they can discuss, and you probably do to some extent already, but if you could have a discussion about the traffic safety measures that need to be taken and actually have parents sign a slip saying that they've read these things, initial these things, anything like that. Not that you're going to get 100%. You won't, of course not. But to try to express the seriousness of it and have them sign something and have it spoken about, not for a long time, but, you know, just comments. I mean, this is their kids too. right? So if they are just paying attention to the proper safety measures that they should be doing, how far over they can pull over to the right to create a separate line so traffic is free to go back and forth would be another great one. Like pull all the way over if you can, not halfway in the street. Don't cover the intersection so other people can come and go. And some really basic stuff, but just another way to reiterate it and have parents sign off on it and talk to parents at back to school nights about it. I know nothing of that sort can really be enforced, but any time you can bring it up helps, obviously. That's all. Thanks.
Yeah, and you have to understand, our school isn't, there's, all the rest of the schools have the same problem. Parents, I was over at Almaden, this one decides to stop and there's like 40 people behind her and she's in the traffic lane. And she doesn't understand that, you have to move along. So that's something we need to work on with the parents. Stormy, I think we need to look at maybe how we can move traffic around that, through that area. I've had a couple kids almost, whacked at the crosswalk there. Had DOT put more lights in, or more dots in. People are making left turns. It's illegal to do that. So I'm gonna hand some tickets out. Yeah, Captain Donahue tickets. He gives them out all the time. He doesn't like to go to court though. That's a problem.
Yeah.
But I think, Stormy, let's look at the flow, the traffic flow there, because it is chaotic. I've had parents start yelling at other kids. I got the video or parents. So I think we need to work at a school level there. So yeah, and I'm working with DOT to do some more changes. Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, Stormy, if you'd like, I can come down there and help you with your cone pattern. We've done it for other schools before, and buy a bunch of cones, and we can help you establish a pattern that'll keep the traffic flow moving pretty well.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, we have large signs that even specifically say bus line only. Parents come, we provide information for others on how to report these things so that people can be cited for these things. We always make sure that information is passed on to the right people. I physically put my body between cars and children daily. We are also trying to do what we can. We recognize that keeping students at Los Paseos safe is definitely on us. And we're happy to do that. I think Principal Stewart and I are happy to host a coffee with the principals to sit down with all of you guys and trying to figure out what we can do. We hear the answer from the city, and I understand and hear all of their points and data. And we still have to do something to keep our students safe. And I completely recognize that. And so we want to hear your perspective, definitely about action. So what now what? We definitely need to figure out how we can make sure that everyone is safe in crossing. That's our number one priority, is school safety. So we will get that. I will chat with Principal Stewart and figure out when we could get that next coffee with the principals, specifically with traffic safety in mind. Captain Donahue, it might be useful if you're available to attend and make sure we're on the right track with our solutions that we come up with that day. And I'm happy to touch base with you again about what we could do with our cones. Maybe you'll have a grand plan that we haven't tried. Obviously, we'll keep trying things. We'll never stop. So thank you for that support.
My email's in the chat, so if you just email me when you want me to come down there. Happy to. And there was something I think that Michelle was going to cover. There's a chat that mentioned something about how this is just happening right now, right? Like how this is just appearing. And I don't think that's quite how this happened. So I'd like Michelle to speak to that real quickly.
Thank you. And yes, I did see that comment. I just don't want to interrupt in the middle of everything. But every summer we create a new schedule for all of the crossing guards to make sure that they're out there at the right time. And by doing that, we pull all the bell schedules for all the different schools. And I have the given supervisor touch base with all the principals or their administration. In doing that this summer, we were made aware that the bell schedule had changed. And there was communication between our unit and as well with the two schools that depending on the foot traffic, it may decrease the number of kids, and that may in turn result to this. So it's something that there had been communication with constantly throughout the summer. And we said, we'll wait until the school year starts. We're not going to do the count at the very beginning of the school year. And that was the same thing to help the pedestrian statistics. Most parents drive their kids the first couple of weeks just because it's new, it's exciting. So we wanted to make sure that set patterns kicked in and that there were a higher number of pedestrians. So we waited to do our count. Even that, our guard said, yes, it's a low count. And I said, let's put the brakes on it a little bit more. Let's wait until October. Let's wait for the crossing guards count to take place. And that was communicated with the school. And then after that, I said, hold on, let me go send out another supervisor. I'm going to redo these counts again, just to confirm. So the dialogue had been there. So it's not something that just came to attrition right now. It's something that we were preparing for as a worst case, just in case. Ideally, we would love to have staffed it, and had been no issue at all. I'm just it sounds kind of odd, but out of the 3 intersections, I was glad that at least one of them qualified on their own. So for me, that was a win and a takeaway from this. Unfortunately, the other 2, but in a bigger picture, at least we got that one with a higher foot traffic covered. So it wasn't something that just took place within the last week or 2.
Okay, great. So Greg, you've had your hand up, and then Councilman, you want to talk. So let's go there.
Yes.
Greg first.
I just have a real quick one. I heard about something happening in Morgan Hill where the volunteer program that I've heard in this meeting sounds like a really good idea. Down there, they have a bucket full of flags that the volunteers can use and cross over the street with a flag in their hand and then put it in another bucket on the other side. Have you heard of that in Morgan Hill? It's on my.
We have it in San Jose.
We do. Willow Glen downtown.
Yeah. Okay.
We actually have it at Basking Ridge this morning. That's what my officers were using to cross kids with those flags. So yeah,
Did you take video? Did you take video of it? That's what I want.
Go look at the Facebook website.
No, I got my flag
Facebook.
here. I'll steal all their bags. Okay, so Councilman, go ahead. Go ahead.
You want to watch?
So can I make my comment here?
Sure.
Captain, you said that these index calculation method has been in place for a long time. Obviously, anything we do, council approves that, but council approves by the recommendation of the department who is closer to the action. Council is not expert on everything and anything for that matter. So when is it the last time we reviewed that how these calculations should be done? If it is done a long time ago, this methodology, and now that we are finding, it looks like the comments, the way I heard, the number is 120, so hence we cannot really justify a crossing guard. But from the intuition of it, it looks like that we do need a crossing guard. So is it that the method has needs to be looked at it again, or at least be reconfirmed?
So the last time that the whole process was looked at was right before COVID hit. I was part of those conversations. I've been a part of this specific unit for over 11 years. So it brings a different dynamic too. So as far as going back, and that was a whole different set of city council members, even at that time.
Sure.
This whole process was there in place before me. Every time it went for review, it reverted back to all of city council unanimously agreeing that the process that is in place is what they wanted to continue with. And again, with a safety index number, some locations our unit doesn't agree with. If they rank, say, it might score 800, and we say, hey, there's another one that scored 300 that we think has a much greater need. We take in the human aspect. The Department of Transportation takes in the hardscape. So it's intentionally set up that way so that City Council has everything in front of them. So if we're saying, hey, this one or another one on Almaden Expressway or one on Capitol Expressway, Monterey Highway, things like that, you might have a lower pedestrian count. It may be lower. When I'm referring to is also maybe 80 students, for example. But we would say those 80 are at greater risk than one tucked away in a neighborhood, where it's a 25-mile or 20-mile-per-hour zone. So yes, everything can be looked at and revamped. The threshold for 120 was set by City Council. However, like I mentioned before, if it were restudied, I am near positive it would score a 0 and fall off the radar completely. So
Michelle, that would mean that the method we are using is really what you recommend it to be the method, because it came across for a second that the council picked up some arbitrary number which you have to follow, and as a result your hands are tied. But this is what, based on your expertise, is what you have recommended to the council, and has council has blessed it, and this is what you would like it to continue to go forward, because council can't come up with anything better than what you come up with.
Okay.
Right?
Well, and there's just one of me, and lowly me has no say in council. I wish, but this was in place way before my time. And every time that it was reviewed, yes, we do have recommendations. But again, when the police department speaks and has recommendations, it's taking into the human aspect and things like traffic enforcement, and as far as the kids on the street physically. Again, when the Department of Transportation has a recommendation, it's based on the hardscape. So collectively, I do think it's a good idea to take all factors into consideration. And I believe, don't quote me on it because I wasn't part of the
No,
city at
no,
that
no,
time,
no, I'm not gonna.
but I believe at that point, if they had, say, 200 intersections to look at and they all had a safety index number assigned, I believe there was a good marking where you could tell there was just a divide where they fell off, within a certain number. And I believe that's where the 120 came from.
Yeah. So, Captain, do you think is it time to? Does it need to be looked at? The methodology needs to be looked at it again, or that's a waste of time?
Well, it's a hard question to answer. I think, of course, any review of methodology is good, right? And just as a general rule of thumb, to be honest, council member, I think that if we reviewed it before COVID and that was within the last 5 years, I think that's reasonable. I don't know what workload it would entail, having the council direct us to re-examine all the intersections in the city with the current DOT projects, but I don't want to dissuade you either.
No. But you guys got very important work. How close I am to you people in terms of understanding. Plus, you have recently picked up that additional workload with the retail theft, which is going to be all done by overtime. And that's, after all, we're dealing with humans who are going to be doing. So there's no magic more than 24 hours, right? So I don't want to bring in a piece of work whose returns are so low compared to the everything else. But if we believe that this number of 120 magically isn't really guiding us taking the right action, then I'm happy to bring it up and make it as a project. But if it is doing more or less a good job, then we got a lot of other things to worry about, and would not want to have this project come up, and then we'd say, hey, this is the best we can do under the circumstances.
I think the best course of action at this point, and Michelle, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, please do. If we are talking about the efficacy of the safety index, and we have a school here in Southern Division that has fallen off the safety index limit, right? It's fallen below the limit. If this school is an anomaly because it just, bell schedules changed and things happened and now we have less kids there, declining enrollment, whatever it may be. If that school is just an anomaly and that's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles, then I don't think that's a systemic issue with the index itself. If we see this problem all over the city and we're seeing a bunch of schools where we have to pull crossing guards and there's some kind of pervasive problem that's presenting itself, I absolutely think that would warrant another look at the index. But and correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle and Captain Spears, are you seeing that? Because if we're not seeing it, I think we're good with the index where we are, and we
I think the process currently at what it's at and what it entails does capture a good snapshot. And if it were revisited, I think that would actually work counterintuitive per purposes of these two intersections, where it would say that it does not qualify. And I know the school district is here, from a Morgan Hill Unified's perspective, it's not just these two schools, you have multiple, and you likely know that, yes, there are, greater needs at other locations. It doesn't mean that one isn't as important as 200, but if we're trying to serve the most and maximize our services, that's where we're going to deploy our services to be very fair and follow the guidelines mathematically. It's an equation that we need to stick to make sure that we're held accountable.
Okay. Captain Brian, you had something to say right quick, or I saw you mentioning, are you good?
She delivered it more eloquently than I did. So
Well, that's why you pay her the big bucks, or should. Okay, I think I want to bring this together here. We've got an issue. As of the 3rd, there will not be a crossing guard for the that time frame. Is that correct, Michelle?
That's correct.
So Stormy, I'd like to get with the parents and see if we can get some people there at that crosswalk or walking their kids during that time, at least for now, until we can work out some other issues. So could you work with that with Debbie?
Yeah, as I said, Herb, we're working to get a coffee with the principal scheduled. We're happy to invite you to that as well if you'd like to participate. Unfortunately, that can't happen before the 3rd. So I would love if you and Greg could get out there tomorrow as a proactive solution, since the 3rd is tomorrow. I am always out there every day in the crosswalk, making sure that my students are safe as they enter, as we have just discovered and brought back to light that even with cones, people don't always follow those safety cues. So that's something that we will urgently have scheduled for next week. Unfortunately, not by tomorrow, the 3rd, that first day of pulling. So I would love your support and anything. If you guys are out there already keeping track of this data, that would be really helpful if you could be out there as well, helping cross kids. We have some extra orange vests if you need them.
Okay.
Tomorrow you will have those flags carrying around, going across the street. The method which was described, the people will carry a flag and put it in the bucket.
We don't have those flags, but we're happy if you'd like to donate those to a school site. We would love to take that as a donation. Funds are tight at schools, but if you'd like to donate the flags, the buckets, the vests, we're happy to utilize those. That would be amazing.
Michelle.
Plus, we can steal these from the
Michelle,
project.
give them the donation.
Oh, nice. There you go.
Okay, give them the donation.
Yeah.
I don't want to
put in a
hear
request for funds. We don't have any, but
I don't want to hear that there were no flags and bucket because there was no donation. Council member is happy to donate, and because this looks like is a good methodology, and I want to see the kids safe. So let's get the buckets and the
So
flags.
do I work with Stormy or Michelle?
Where is she?
I don't have any flags, but I could help find some. So, and one thing, just from lessons learned in the past, schools have reached out to us in the past asking about the flag system. And depending on the demographics, we do not always recommend it. For example, downtown Willow Glen, it works. And those businesses all pitch in and for the cost of the flags, as well as the replacements and the upkeep of them. Depending on who's crossing and how well you trust them also, a lot of the kids like to use them to stab each other. Some of them throw them at vehicles as they're driving by. So with that, I do add just, to caution and to think in a broader perspective too, before jumping in 100%. If most kids cross with their parents, will their parent keep them in check? If we notice issues and we ask the school, will we have the school support? Because unfortunately, sometimes they're out there where we've heard, not to call out principals, but sometimes principals will say they're not on our campus. It's not our problem. You deal with them. We've dealt with them for so many hours at school. They're your problem now. And we can't do anything.
That's definitely not our philosophy. That's why we're here at 8:15 on a work night, because we want to keep our kids safe while they cross the street. We are dedicated to them from door to door, and that's exactly why we're here tonight.
Right. So we are willing to donate if you guys tell us that this is the right thing to do. It adds to the safety a bit. We are happy to donate, and you got my commitment on that one, and Michelle will get you the donation. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. The
you
other
very
factor
much.
here is
Thank
DOT. DOT has a group, Cornell Bailey. He's been at the school. I want him to get more active. They have things they do for the schools. I have a close relationship with DOT. We put extra dots over at Los Paseos to keep them, know that they're going over the line, more signage. And then we put the 25-mile-an-hour signs before the signals. So I'm talking to them about getting more flashing lights, because our problem is these guys are going too fast. They're even talking about getting radar signs. So Michelle, open up your purse. Maybe one. I know they're a few $1,000s. So
I wish I
No.
could say, but anything hardscape is not PD. That's transportation.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
we're
it-
only for people.
Right. So I have them, they also bring out their big signs, they brought the big sign out, the construction sign, slow the hell down. So I'll work with them to continue that and then work with the PD and see if we can get some officers once in a while to patrol that area. And then, we'll have Captain Donahue down there a few times handing out tickets with his black Charger. Was that your Charger Saturday? All right, guys.
So
and
you
I-
have that, Michelle, you have that memo based on which you work. Michelle Dexter, do we have copy of?
No, we do not. That would be good to have since that was before, before your time. So if it was pre-COVID, that'd be like 2019, 2018, something like that. So if you have the memo that you can produce for us that was approved at council with the 120 and all that, so we can see what other recommendations you came up with, that would be great.
And I believe at that time it was not a memo. It was there were several meetings with DOT as well as PD and other safety stakeholders. And they were discussing, should we reassess the whole program and restudy every intersection at that point. And with that conversation is what criteria goes into
But
it.
if something, if the council approved something about 120 safety index, that had to come to council via a memo, right?
That was not the time around COVID though. That was prior
Well,
to my time. So I'll
okay, so whenever that
try
was.
to find that.
Whatever it was that got us here today that we're living with.
Mhm.
I don't know how old that was, but yeah.
Right.
Okay, so we've
right.
done here. I got it. We got to close this out, but we're gonna have crosswalks with the cop. Captain Donahue will have a bunch of people out. You can talk to them then. I'm concerned, Stormy, that we have somebody at that crosswalk, and I'll talk to the LPNA members. We're gonna have a meeting here pretty soon to see what we could do. I would like to get the parents out there too. It's their responsibility. Ben, if you can walk your kids across the street for a while and let's see what happens, I'd appreciate it.
And Ben does. He walks his kids into school every morning. So
Yeah,
we
right.
I walk the kids and I don't mind, just a couple of comments. I don't mind. I'll keep on walking them. I enjoy it. It's a great time together with the kids and I enjoy it. I'll keep on doing this. I have no objection to, I think everybody would agree that we need to prioritize. It makes sense. Limited resources. That's fine. I still question the number. It seems to me like something went wrong there. I still question the index of the formula. It seems like that's not what was intended originally at some point. And I still think that there's a communication issue because I'm the parent who the crossing guard told to, and this is why we're having this meeting today. And conversely, sometimes I tell the crossing guards about a change in schedule, tomorrow there's no school or short day. Something is not really clicking on all gears. And we can kind of move aside and deal with the problem at hand, but I think it's worth taking a step back and realizing something is not working as intended.
And I think this is something we're gonna have to work overtime. I appreciate, Captain Spears and Captain Donahue coming into this meeting. Council member, thank you. Michelle, I appreciate you. I know you don't have an easy job. Yeah, I mean, this is a problem that we have throughout the city. I don't want to see another Joshua Villanova get hit in the crosswalk. Hell no. So we will do what we need to do to stop that. And I know, the command staff, it's on their first list. If something happens to a kid, they don't like to see it because they have their own children and know a lot of kids. So I really appreciate Captain Donahue starting this new program he's doing. He will be the a captain of the month. That gets you a parking space and coffee, and I'll buy you coffee for the weeks. So yeah, Captain Spears, you're next if you work it for us. If you're out there on the 16th, you'll get some free coffee and talk to the people. I think it'd be great. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Follow up. If you need anything, send me an email. I can get to, you got Captain Donahue's and Captain Spears put their information. Lieutenant Cherry, thank you for joining us, and we'll be calling you a lot more.
No problem. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Good night. Thank you,
Thank you very
Councilman.
much.
All right, guys.
Right,
thank you. All right,
Thank you,
take
healthy
care.
parents, for coming tonight. We appreciate you.
And if you want more information, go to the LPNA website. We'll try to keep stuff up there on our website about this issue and, get the parents and the people involved throughout our community. And then join CERT if you want. That's my other thing I have to say. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Appreciate you. All right. Take care.
Good night.
Night.